Okay, well, thank you for bearing with us today. It's been a long day. My first question for everybody is, so you want to be your own bank, eh? Yeah, you think your crypto coins, your mining machines, they're safe, right? Well, we're the Crypto Kings. We're a Vancouver-based research group and service provider in blockchain, and we're here to tell you that you folks and us, none of us are safe right now. We've been doing hundreds of videos of outreach, lots of posts and educational content, and more often than not, we end up on the subject of security. And more importantly, specific techniques that investors, miners, and users can use to avoid falling victim to fraud and other things in the crypto space. We really are passionate about security, so if any of you want to speak to us at any time, please reach out. We will tell you everything we know. Now, security operates a lot like an onion, but we're going to let Cam talk more about that over here on my right. Back to basically how we're all getting owned basically all the time, okay? And I really do mean that. We're all getting owned all the time. You know, you hear a lot of people up here talking about things like Quadriga. And we spoke openly about this for a year, long before this ever happened. We warned people about Omar. We warned people about these exchanges, and yet friends and clients, people we work with, were still caught up in this recent debacle. On another point, we spoke loudly about NiceHash on a regular basis. We coined the term nice hack. We used that in the community for a year and a half before the hack happened. Now, we have some differing opinions. You know, we look at things like Quadriga and NiceHack. We're pretty confident these were scam exits. And you want to make sure that you don't get caught up in this type of activity. You know, many of us are compromised without even knowing it already. And I can't stress that enough. Are you guys, I really do think there's a reckoning coming here where a lot of the high-level malware attacks, the high-level telecommunication being infected. We had some people talking about the phone network having some security vulnerabilities. I really do feel strongly that 50 to 60% of the crypto users could already be compromised, and that these hackers are just waiting for an opportune moment. Now, we know our stuff when it comes to security. We like to hang out at conferences like Black Hat and DEF CON for fun. I don't know if anyone in the room knows what these are. And many other security or hacker conferences. We hang out in deep, dark corners of the web late into the nights on a regular basis. And some of us on the stage here are even privy to viruses and other issues that the public at large don't even have security clearance to hear about. So when I tell you that I feel strongly that 50 to 60% of the people in the market could already be compromised, I really, really do feel this way. Now, the real question I have for all of you is, when these types of things happen, are your keys going to be a part of that? It's a really simple answer. So I would like to start now with some examples of these types of experiences we've had with friends, colleagues, and people we've worked with after these incidents. I'll start off first with a friend of ours who was mining at his campus. Of course, we all love free power in the room here. We want to maximize that free power anytime we get our hands on it. And of course, power was included with his campus fees. So he was mining, and he was mining with us as a work group. Now, some of our team members on the pool started noticing some inconsistencies with his uptime. And upon further investigation, we started to notice several times a week, between 2 and 4 a.m., his machine would come off the pool. And then sometime around 4:12, 4:14, it would come back online. We continued to look into this, and what we found was someone locally on the floor at the university was remotely connecting into his computer, changing the wallet addresses in the miner for those 2 hours, and then changing it back to his personal wallet. Now, these types of things are going on in mining operations all of the time, but very often they're not noticed due to poor protocols, bad logging, and bad auditing. This is just one example, but I could mention several with similar experiences. Now, we also flag exchanges on a regular basis with people. We red flagged Nice Hack, we red flagged Quadriga, and yet we can't seem to get some of the community at large to listen to us. Now, I'm basically here to remind you, more than anything, that you've all been warned, okay? You've all heard it. That exchange, not safe. Those teams, total scam artists. That coin, artificially inflated, impossible to hold that value, right? Even these pools run by criminals, don't trust it. Well, am I wrong? You've all heard this, right? Well, I can guarantee you haven't always listened. And I'm here to remind you, when you get these types of warnings, pay attention. There's a reason that you have multiple people telling you these things in this space. Just because you don't see this perspective doesn't mean that they aren't familiar with something you're not. So do your basic research. If you're going to spend your hard-earned time, if you're going to get your team involved with projects, or you're going to spend investor money on something, you better damn well do the basic insurance. Or, you better look at the research. You better do the audit. It's all these things we see. It's very clear that these people have criminal histories. The CTO at Nice Hash and one of the other founding members, they had recently just come out of jail for identity fraud and malware sales online. This information is readily available. The only person that's not looking at it are the people who are going to get caught up in these losses. Now, I'd like to give you a couple more examples of some experiences we've had with clients in the area here. Another one of our friends and miners, who was a trader and miner at scale, he was using his phone to store some of the altcoins that we were speculative mining. He was using an app called Exodus. Now again, Spencer and I took a look at this app. We noticed that it was leaving your private keys unencrypted in their full form in the file system of your phone. Now, that means that anyone that has access to that device can read off those private keys without any efforts. And that's not to say that if that unencryption is done in the phone, you're able to get access to those keys as well. So, of course, he was using his phone to store coins. An automated malware attack was done to it on a Wi-Fi network, and his coins were set, and he fell victim. Now, this brings up a really good point. We refuse to work with any clients that don't follow basic policies and procedures. If you don't follow paper wallet practices, if you don't use cold wallet storage, we will flat out refuse to help. Because this, in our opinion, is the bare minimum that's necessary to be in this space right now. And if anybody needs help with this, please reach out to us afterwards. We're very happy to share our knowledge. Now, back to the wallet. I didn't finish this. So our client was in Tim Hortons, connected to the Wi-Fi network. And of course, the Tim Hortons Wi-Fi network had poor security, and it had been infected with some malware. Well, this malware identified the phone, identified the app on the phone, and did what's called a sweep attack against several of the coin's private keys. So a total of 5 different coins were completely dumped out of his wallet, and a simple double spend attack was performed, and he was no longer in possession of these keys. Now, you can follow all the best practices and policies in the world, but do not forget that you can still get owned by the maid, and you can still get wrecked by the hotel Wi-Fi. Yeah, how many of you are connected right now? Right? No. This is something important to think. Just because it says Bitcoin Wi-Fi doesn't mean that it's a network you should be connected to. Maybe you guys check your phones. So now again, you've all been warned. You've all been spoken to about this. You all know you should use cold storage. Why isn't it? On a regular basis, when we reach out, we come online, help exchanges, we help farms at scale, and we look at these practices. There's no reason to be mining to an exchange. There's no reason not to be operating a full node if you're signing this many transactions. You can eliminate most of these losses through really basic best practices. Now, these are called best practices for a very obvious reason. They are the best way to keep a hold of your keys. You can mitigate almost 100% of these incidents. So, I hope today when you hear us refer to best practices in this talk, that you listen and you learn from these lessons. Because if you pay attention, you're going to have the largest upside for that 100 times market that we're all here for. So let's pay attention, and let's all take security as seriously as we can. Now, don't take my word for this, guys. I'm just one person. I'm going to pass it off to Cameron and Spencer, the Crypto Kings, your friends, and they'll tell you why security is the number one issue in this space and continues to be. Cameron?
Thanks a lot. So, we've talked about a number of different breaches, a number of different attacks. We've talked about, spear phishing. I'm sure we all know somebody who's gotten those phishing emails. But, a lot of people, I think, overlook the true threat of malware, right? Malware itself can do some very damaging things very quickly. So an example of what that looks like is a botnet pool that's running at roughly 6,000 infections per this graphic. That's worldwide. It's generating about 115 gigahashes a second, so that equates to about 11 to 12 Ethereum a day pre the 30% dip. Not bad money, but if we look at the names of the different workers that are on and offline, they're all API generated. If we look at the hash rates, they're pretty darn low. These are very likely unsuspecting miners that are being victims of a slow and low mine attack. Right. Let's take another look. This is actually directly out of the Q3 2018 malware report from Malwarebytes Labs. We can actually track the price of crypto along the line with the increase of malware here, right? So the cyber criminals, they're no dummies. They try to maximize their time and efficiency just like any other business out there. For them, oftentimes it's how quickly can I get paid? How quickly can I get to cash? And, crypto mining really represented a big risk in that, right? And a massive reward in a lot of cases. Here we can see that right along the times when we were seeing the spikes, those were when the prices were up. And then all of a sudden, trailing by just a few weeks, as prices dipped and the market took other hits, the bad guys shifted their efforts out of crypto mining. They went back to ad fraud. They went back to ransomware. They went back to the things that are getting them paid. Kind of funny how that works, huh? So, how do they perform this stuff? How do we get malware in there? Oftentimes, people are going to use commoditized exploit kits, right? Think of this like a battering ram. Here are a few of the different major exploit kits that are for sale today. I repeat, for sale. You don't have to build these on your own. You go, you spend a little bit of Bitcoin, and oh, look, you can break into all of these different systems with the following vulnerabilities known. So if you happen to know that your target exchange, everybody uses Internet Explorer, well, I know which exploit kits I'm going to target them with, right? Bad guys think like this, right? They look at the protocol level with tools like Shodan, right? If anybody's out there is familiar with the Shodan search engine, and we can flat out enumerate who is doing what based on behavioral profiles of traffic. Another thing, once they actually get the crypto miners in there, they're going to be delivered a number of different methods, whether it be through, malvertising, pup wrappers, malicious spam, social engineering, everything we're seeing on the screen. And in the early days, we would see 100% CPU usage spikes. I can tell you that that's very uncommon today. Most of the time, you're going to see malware that utilizes maybe 25% of the CPU. The idea is to not get caught. They want to stay persistent in that network as long as they can. Another good method of that, besides dropping the actual malware on a system, is they might target web servers and do drive-by mining downloads through JavaScript. Who here has heard of CoinHive? Yeah, basically you go to the wrong website, all of a sudden your browser slows down. Thank God, right? Yeah, they're being shut down. Or I should say that they're ceasing business for a number of operational reasons. But they would basically offer up a script, and you could embed it right into your web app, and any user that hit your page was crypto mining for you. And then they released it an opt-in version. At the time, Malwarebytes, they still kind of considered that malware because they didn't let the users actually choose, right, the percentages. They just said it was either on or off. So it's kind of an open the floodgates approach. And oftentimes, too, we see more and more that malware doesn't leave a trace on a system. This is an example of some fileless malware where we have a simple redirect. It's the rig exploit kit, not to get too technical, followed by the malware payload in red behind it. This took a couple of seconds, right? This is a perfect example of what traffic looks like in a malware attack. So how do the guys write this stuff? It's not all command line anymore. There's a lot of tools that, again, for just a little bit of crypto, and sometimes you don't even have to put up front costs anymore. The bad guys will actually make deals with you and say, hey, we'll help you deploy all this stuff for a cut, right? Ransomware as a service. Who remembers RAA ransomware? $35 for a lifetime subscription with support. Yeah, that sucks for us, right? So oftentimes today, you'll have tools out there that will build malware very quickly. And then on top of that, like I said, the bad guys don't want to get caught. So they'll use other tools that will allow the malware to hide from a lot of common solutions out there. Who runs AV? Right? No, it's a good thing. Really, we should all be running AV. It's another layer. But more importantly than your AV, who runs a patch when it's released? Like within 3 days. I see one hand up, two hands up in this room. You two are the superstars. Patching will prevent way more malware and threats from hitting you than any AV solution will. And I'm saying that from somebody who used to work for one. Now, beyond just malware attacks, when we look at the space today, we have to understand that there are also another vector here. There's the protocol-based attacks. We've heard reference of double spend, 51% attacks, right? Brute forcing the network. But the bottom line is we have to be aware of these things, and we also have to think about these things, and more importantly, how to respond to these things. Because, again, some people up here have said, oh, well, you're talking about nation-state levels of attack. Maybe for Bitcoin, there's a number of other coins and blockchains out there that you could completely 51% pwn for less than $100,000 right now, all through cloud mining contracts with NiceHack and freaking Hashflare. Right? And I'm serious, guys. It would take you probably a couple hours to design all of this stuff. So just understand that with a decentralized platform, you are a slave to the protocol. And with that protocol talk, there's actually a couple of things to note here, right? We don't just have proof of work chains. We also have proof of stake chains. And that's where you get into some really fun, like smart contract attacks and things like that, right? Because at the end of the day, staking it's still decentralized, but you're kind of centralizing stuff back into the stake node, right? So let's be honest, it's a nice try. We got that graphic. We'll just ignore that. But smart contract vulnerabilities happen. Spencer, that one was on you. That's how I believe it was the NEM coin. Yeah, NEM coin was done through a smart contract attack, right? And what was the numbers on that, Alex?
They essentially got everything.
Just about everything. So the whole chain's basically done. Great. So the last slide I have up to show you guys today is something that we utilize in enterprise security. It's the CIS version 7 controls. This is a stack-ranked list of things that you can do, and you will be more secure for doing it. Please whip out your phones, take a picture of this. It's publicly available knowledge. Go up to the Center for Internet Security, right? This was built in conjunction with the SANS Institute, who are, in my opinion, some of the best in the market. But beyond these controls right here under organizational, there are a number of other controls that we need to put in place because we're playing in a decentralized market. And that's where policy and technology are going to meet, right? And it's going to be very important. So with that, I'm actually going to hand you guys over to Spencer to really cover some of those core policies that you need to do when interfacing with a decentralized protocol.
So security policies are something that are very easy to implement, and they can either help you during an attack, say an intruder on your network. They can help you mitigate damage from attack. Say you lose a bunch of files, but you already have a policy where you're storing all your data at an offsite that's unaffected. We can also have security policies where they're based on a timer and something that just goes. And what's great about that is that if we already have the security policies in place, it means we don't have to think about recovering. We can just go, we can enact them, and it allows us to respond a lot faster and a lot more efficiently because we've already prepared for the attack. And so leading into that, one thing that's super important with cryptocurrency is the concept of hot and cold wallets. So a hot wallet is any wallet that's been connected to a computer with an internet connection. So your wallet on an exchange, it's a hot wallet. If you've got a wallet, say you've got your Ethereum key file that you've now loaded up to Mu to send a transaction, that is now a hot wallet. A cold wallet is a wallet that's never been connected to the internet. So you can, and not all currencies will actually allow you to create a hot wallet. Typically what you're doing is you're going to use an offline computer or an offline generator, and you're going to do that. How you're doing that, you can do it, say, using live USB. You can use an air-gapped laptop. And it's a really great way to mitigate your attacks. And so another, so security. So this is an example of an offline wallet generator that would allow you to create a Bitcoin wallet. There's also a list of all the compliant wallets. And basically what you're doing is you're using a source of randomness to generate what's essentially a really long password, and that's used to generate your private and your public keys. So one of the best policies that you can implement is to use a hardware wallet. A hardware wallet is essentially a cold wallet storage, where you generate that key and it's all generated on the device. So what you do is you write down your seed words that you get off the display. And what this means is now, when you want to send a transaction, you use a computer to generate the data, you move that transaction onto the hardware wallet, it then encrypts your hashes your transaction, it gets submitted back to the computer, and then broadcasted on the network. This way, your private key is never exposed. It never actually leaves the physical device. Now, this is a best practice. And like I said, hardware wallets are safe, but we have seen a number of different attacks that have gone to them. So, if we go back. So these are the two most common hardware wallets. You have the Trezor and the Ledger Nano. The Ledger Nano was vulnerable to supply chain attacks, and we saw that in two different ways. One, a third-party seller would buy a bunch of Ledger Nano wallets. He'd pre-configure them with a seed. He'd then add a scratch card with your seed words hidden on the scratch card, and then he'd mail it out to people, and then just monitor the wallets and wait for someone to transfer anything in, and then he'd just move it out to his own private key. There was another attack where we found that someone was actually able to load code onto the Nano Ledger, and they could then dictate the seeds that were generated. So as you can see in these images, each seed word is actually the same word. And so that means you can actually put anything you want. You can actually see the code on GitHub. It only works on Nano Ledgers that are 1.31 or older. Trezor was also victim to another attack. Basically, they found that they were able to remove the firmware and then upload a new one, and then they were able to actually get the wallets off of it, or the seed words off of the Trezor. So really what's important is that you're following all these policies so that you're mitigating your amount of risk. So if you're going to use an exchange, you should keep if you're going to trade with it, keep your money on the exchange, but also keep a cold wallet for your long-term storage. So now I'm going to have back to Alex.
Yeah, so I hope you guys got some good advice from that. I hope that we're all going to change our policies, go home and reset our passwords. If we're mining to exchanges, I hope you're all going to be mining to cold wallets that have never been online. Now, if we're going to open it up for questions, but I do want to mention we've started a development cycle on FPGA and its disruption in the mining space. So if you guys are familiar with field reprogrammable gate arrays and their application and disruption in the space, please come chat with us afterwards. We'd love to inform you about how these beasts are blowing all those other machines out of the water right now. Now, so let's open it up to some security questions from the conference. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, at the back?
Yeah, so you mentioned that you think 50 to 60 of us might already be wrecked and not know it.
Yes.
What's the most vulnerable the hardware that is getting wrecked right now?
Well, you know, there's a whole variety of different attacks. We've now heard of cellular providers being infected. Mu was faked through a DNS poisoning where it was redirected to an uncertificate site through Russia. There's a lot of automated malwares. And primarily, the majority of farms at scale that we come into to do some consulting, they are seeing remote connections and hacking issues they're completely unaware of already. So I think that the reality of it is the ways that we can be or fall victim are endless. I think a lot of the attacks that are going to happen to blockchain in the future, when we see things like $100,000 Bitcoin, if it ever goes there, you will see a lot of creative minds with a lot of intention work towards finding new solutions to breaking these existing models. So until new vulnerabilities are exposed, until we see things that are unknown to us now, these things we talk about are the best practices and really should keep you safe from most of these situations. It's sad. It ruins families. It causes people to commit suicide. Our crypto kings, we've lost some people as well through some of these issues. And it's a really sad thing to talk about. So to us, this is the most important thing. Yeah. Just follow the best practices, brother. This is your best bet.
Are there any exchanges presently that you think are particularly suspect?
Presently? Okay, so I would be happy to speak about this afterwards. I will counter that with the one exchange that I feel is meeting all the requirements in Canada, the one exchange that we tell all of our clients and friends to work with. And I would recommend Kraken. Of all the exchanges I've gone through, we didn't come up with any red flags. But Omar, shadow brokers, the CTO at NiceHash, being part of the one of the top malware sellers online on the dark web, these things are very easily able to be found out. So just do your basic research, and you will miss 99% of these. Yeah. But feel free to come up and speak to us after about that. I've got a whole list of things to avoid. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. What's your favorite hardware wallet?
So Spencer, Cam, and I, we all really strongly like the Nano Ledger. Now, Nano Ledger has continued to update their hardware wallets. I personally have exploited keys from the Trezor wallets. The chipset that they use in those are not what you would call standardized for security, whereas the Nano Ledger chipsets are similar to what's used in ATM machines. So with the ability to physically eject keys out of a Trezor, I have a real hard time suggesting using that for long-term storage, just because if anyone ever gets access to it, in as little as 13 seconds, they can have your master key. So we really do like the Nano Ledger. We really, really like that. But more importantly, we like offline wallet creation. Sync up that chain, create that wallet, and the first time you use it, throw it out and make another one. And there's a lot of ways to automate this process for yourself. So, nothing beats a paper wallet. And don't print it. Don't take a picture with your phone. The Wi-Fi networks, the printers, all these devices have malware and backdoors in them as well. So please, you write it down. Get your wife or a trusted person to write down beside it. Store those two keys in separate locations, and you can mitigate a lot of those risks. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Could you address the new Samsung Galaxy S10 with crypto wallet support and the Knox program on that device?
Yeah, so I know you're heavily involved in the field, and we love chatting with you about it down at the Sales DevCon. So I have differing opinions about the phones as wallets, because we're such enthusiasts in the hacking space. We know that with physical access, even those near-field chips are able to be exploited. So I'm personally not a strong believer in the models currently. If we start to see the SIM cards used in correlation with specific chipsets in the phones, I think this would be a really good way to secure wallets on the phones. I know we had spoken about similar techniques. Having anything in one place is always going to cause essentially a target, right? It's going to make you a target for these criminals looking to steal your money. Yeah.
And one other thing to add to that is that, just like you have a checking account and a savings account, have multiple wallets. Have some that hold your long-term that you never, ever, ever touch, or that you touch in an emergency, the rainy day fund wallet, if you will. Have your other wallet that you actually do your week-to-week, month-to-month, or if you're lucky enough, day-to-day, crypto transactions out of.
Yeah. And Spencer, do you have anything to add to that?
And it's also important to show someone that you love or that you trust on how to access your crypto funds, because we never know when you might pass away, or say you get into a bad accident and you now need those funds, but no one around you can actually are able to access them. It's a real life problem that we actually see time and time again.
Yeah, we've had to work with several people after deaths or some incidents like this, and trying to recover those funds for the family is an emotional process, to say the least. And it can take 3 to 6 months. It requires a lot of gray hat activity, stuff that I wouldn't necessarily announce here publicly. But we've been able to secure funds for everyone that's come to us with these problems. We've been able to get access to bank accounts and emails and Facebook accounts and all of the other stuff necessary for them to get a hold of all that information. Please speak with your family. Find a trusted person. I don't want to have to go through the stuff I've gone through with some of these clients. It's been emotionally tolling on us. Yeah.
When you say farms are getting connection, remote connection, what protocols is specifically happening over?
So we see a number of varying protocols, and oftentimes that's going to depend on how the mine is set up. Case in point, if you have a lot of Windows jump servers or access servers for back office personnel, an unsecured printer, you're probably going to start seeing a fair bit of RDP. If you're an ASIC farm, right, oftentimes those protocols are going to leverage SSH, right? But the big thing is that as the mine owner, you should really be profiling your own network traffic. There's a lot of open source tools out there that will let you do that. There's a lot of really wonderful paid solutions out there that will help you do that. And if you're not doing that, I mean, again, it goes back to kind of items 1 and 2 on my list of you've got to inventory your hardware, you've got to inventory the software that's running on those devices. Because if you don't know about it, how can you protect it?
Any other questions?
Yeah, we got one more over here.
Yeah, Jason. Yeah, so I think that we're going to see more of that with the devices, including the hardware, as a secondary option. They're just using a simple connection or Bluetooth to speak to the phone. And again, hopefully it's going to operate similar to the way Spencer described with the Nano Ledger, where the transaction is created on the phone, the transaction request, the hash is created in the physical hardware stick, and then that's sent back out with the hash to the phone. I think this is certainly a good solution, and I think we'll see a lot more of that. Although, a couple of those companies are going under right now in this space, and we got some, I guess you call insider knowledge on some of that. So feel free to come chat with us afterwards about that as well. Yeah, so is there any other questions we have? Okay, guys, we're the Crypto Kings. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. And please, heaven forbid, follow those best practices, folks. It's going to save you and us, so we all see that upside when this 100 times market returns. Okay, thank you.